All right, good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Lunenburg Municipal Building Design Committee. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access channel. The recording of this meeting will be available on the Lunenburg Public Access YouTube channel within 24 hours. The agenda lists all the topics which may be discussed at the meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by the open meeting law. Public participation is encouraged, and public comments may be welcomed during committee member discussions at the discretion of the chair. So we're going to start tonight with public comments. Do we have any public comments this evening from the public? All right, seeing no public here with us. Do we have any public comments from APDC? I think the representative has not joined us yet. So public comments from the committee. All right, seeing none. We are meeting remotely via Zoom. So I also just want to state the members that are here with us this evening. We have Matt Allison, Greg Roy, Brian Leighton, and Tom Gray, and myself, Mike Ray Jeffries. All right, so the purpose of tonight's meeting in large part is to discuss the feedback for the scenarios for Ritter Building, Town Hall, and the TC Passios Building. So I'm going to go ahead and share the screen and just pull up. Actually, I'm not going to pull up the concepts. So we can just start talking about the select board, and then we'll go into the school committee feedback. And then we know the planning board, I need to schedule some time with them. And so we'll have that feedback at our meeting at probably the midpoint in January. So we met with the select board earlier on in the fall, and we presented the concepts to them. We also met with the school committee. I met with the school committee. Brian was there as well, and we went over the concepts there. And then the school committee discussed them. In part, when I was with them, they also held a second meeting in which they discussed them in more detail. Brian will present that, and they also provided a letter. And so I will go ahead and email that letter out to all the members. And then also we're just going to present the letter and just read through it all together anyway here tonight. So recapping the meeting with the select board, I would summarize that as saying that generally the select board liked the hybrid concept. I think the general feedback, and this is a conversation, so certainly anyone else can jump in here. The general feedback, as I recall it, was that the board was liked the work that the committee has done to date. They really liked the hybrid concept. They thought that would meet most of the needs. And where we left off was kind of, hey, they wanting more communication here, wanting to hear what the school committee had to say, wanting to hear what the planning board had to say, and also the public input. But I would summarize their feedback as they thought we were generally on the right track. Greg, do you want to add anything to that at all?
No, going back a few months here too, so my brain is a little foggy on this, but yeah, no, I remember it about the same as you. I think I remember certainly Tom Alonso, and I think several of the other ones really did like our sort of blended hybrid concept that we sort of put together. Yeah, I don't really remember it any differently.
Yeah.
I confess I would probably have to go back through and listen to the tape to get any more specific about that. But I agree that I think they generally thought we were on the right track. And they like the hybrid.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. I would agree. I had done the minutes on that meeting too recently, so I sent that out, but that summarized a little bit of it. I think there was concerns about, I think it was 2 and 3, where if there was no home for PAC, that was an issue. And then Heather Stroka, who obviously has some prior school committee experience too, she had mentioned she had concerns about the extended day program, the community links program, all the school-based programming to make sure that there's home for those guys.
Yeah. All right. So what I will be doing separately, and I know I have to kind of move around some files here, is taken some notes here on these key points on the feedback. So again, from the select board, and let me go ahead and share the screen while I do this, so that way I'm not doing this in the dark here. Let's see. All right, can everyone see this? All right, good. So select board will summarize the feedback as I think generally preferred concept, hybrid concept, right? And we know that there were the feedback about PAC studios. And then extended day programs. And let's see. Okay. Was that a good summary there, Brian?
Yeah.
Okay. And I think that was kind of generally where we were. All right. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing this for a moment, and then I will, Brian, if you want to present. Actually, I've already kind of laid it out for us. So why don't I go ahead and screen share, and the letter, do you want to read through it, or do you want me to read?
Yeah, sure. I can walk through it. I don't know if I have to read the whole thing, but we can highlight some aspects.
I'll have it on the screen and we'll go ahead and share it. All right. And let me know when everyone can see this. Okay, I'll just minimize the side to enlarge. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah, so we had met with Mr. Jeffries and kind of discussed it, but then we met again to draft up a letter, and then again tried to finalize the letter after. Wanted to thank the committee for obviously reaching out to us, and Mr. Jeffries for coming to the meeting. They reviewed we reviewed the options. Obviously know it's a difficult task, but definitely want to weigh in. But also thank you guys for the work, and thank everyone for the work. Obviously it's a big compromise. I think that was another aspect of it. And then again, Mr. Jeffrey stated too that the central office really needed the ACE program. We had mentioned that at the select board meeting as well. So the concerns for the school committee was, and you can see that in the conversations we had too, but it was the early learning center and the schooling services. It was like, okay, we need to make sure there's a home for them because it's unlikely that they could be able to be absorbed into the school buildings. And it is a community need, and that's kind of what we're trying to address in the letter. And I think the idea was we at least wanted to try to give some ideas of potential solutions.
Want me to scroll to the next page?
I think it partly says it in the bottom, but yeah, you can scroll halfway there. So at the end, the last paragraph, we do have a possible solution. Please realize that we don't have the resources to vet this. It's offered for your consideration, and the superintendent said it's definitely a possibility during our meeting that the Brooks House, after necessary renovations, could be possible home for the early learning center, and perhaps provide a small amount of space needed for the schooling services. So that was a possible solution we could discuss too. And then the extended day, this was the concern of the school committee, is that it would have to, if the TCP building wasn't available, that it would have to be sent back to the schools. And the concern here is, okay, the schools could absorb them, use the cafeteria, use the gym, but then by using the gym space, that's also going to affect other organizations. So we had mentioned community youth programs, adult athletic programs. By basically taking up the gym space, that's going to create a higher demand for gym space across the community, whether it's through the youth programs and the adult programs, that there's going to be a shortage of space. So there was a possible solution that the school committee wanted to throw out there, that you could possibly add an additional metal structure near the TC Pasio's property, where it's a potential low-cost gym, not a full, new gym, or it's just an additional gym space. We could look into that our committee literally would have to look into the price of what that would be, but it could be used for the entire town, senior citizens, and so on. And it would be near the Eagle House if that land of TC Pasio's was available, or even in the back area. Yeah, that was the concern for extended day. Turkey Hill was not the other major issue that we wanted to discuss in the letter. And again, it's an ongoing conversation, but that Turkey Hill obviously wasn't addressed. And as a committee, we know that that's how it's going to go too. But it's not part of our charge. And the school committee recognizes that. But I think the idea was that Mr. Jeffries had stated about, addressing the major systems. And we just wanted to make sure that the town would be able to provide those significant portions of those projects and that funding to continue having Turkey Hill operate at as we wait for potentially an addition or a renovation or a new build. And again, that would be something we would have to, as a school committee, address with the town officials, select board, and so on. Hopefully that summarizes it.
Yeah, and I'll jump in there to add some clarity to this kind of paragraph here about my opinion that I did offer when we were meeting with the school, when I met with the school committee. The opinion that I offered to them, I'll summarize it and say that I expressed concern that that we hear in the background this Turkey Hill project, and that if that is no longer in the background and becomes in the foreground, that it would likely bump anything else that we're trying to do because of the real sensitivities involved with children, how that mobilizes members of our community, and my concern being that it's a building that is our youngest, one of our younger school buildings. It's not that old. I think it's 55 or 56 years old or something along that nature. And that there could be things that are done to prolong the life of that building, so that way we could invest other town funds on resolving our other town issues. And I expressed concern that if there was a competition, so to speak, that if we were competing around the same time for the same type of funds, my concern was that, the focus would go to the school, and that it wouldn't, that we would prolong the cycle in a way. I know I'm wording that, differently, but that was the gist, I think, of how I was trying to present that, hey, this is a really important thing, but we've been kicking this can down the road for decades, if not centuries, because of needs for schools. I don't want to pit town against schools, but that's the general, I think, concept, and that it would be great if the schools can pause for about 10 years and allow us to get a project in that's not another school, and that doesn't kind of utilize a lot of our debt capacity. So that was the general gist. I know I worded it a little differently than that, but that was what I was trying to communicate as a selectman, and then also in my personal opinion when I met with them.
No, thanks. I think the school committee heard that. I think also with that, I think the school committee, if you listen to our meetings too, we understand that we are waiting for the Lunenburg Municipal Design Committee to make their progress and make their project complete. I think we know where our line is after the Lunenburg Municipal Design Committee, and it's going to be a wait and see. But I think what I saw in this letter is that, okay, if that's the case, if we're, whatever the timeline is, let's make sure that Turkey Hill is a running school, an efficient school, while we wait. I don't think we're going to try to get in the way. And I think the idea is, let's get everybody on board, the school committee on board, and make a project with the Lunenburg Municipal Design Committee that's good for the whole community.
All right. Okay. All right, let me go ahead and stop sharing there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the concepts again, just so that, I know that we're recording, we're all familiar with them, but remembering that there are people who will be likely watching this on television. I'm going to go ahead and share those concepts again, and then we'll go back to our notes screen here on so that way we're capturing all the notes. So it looks as though, and Brian, I just want to confirm, for the most part, the school committee zeroed in on this hybrid concept. Is that right?
Yeah, I think we saw what the select board had talked about too. So I think that helped guide the decision as well, trying to get everybody on the same page. That hybrid made the most sense.
All right, so focusing then on the hybrid concept, again, this is kind of I'll have them all in view here if I can. Let me just enlarge this a little bit. Try to keep them all in view. So, but only speaking to the hybrid. So the hybrid concept was looking at TC Passios, looking at it as a transition space to help as a temporary location for occupants of other buildings that are getting redeveloped. So a transition space and then function as a community center. That community center would be demolishing the north wing. That's the wing closest to the middle high school, and away from the library, the central wing, and then part or possibly part of the west wing as well that would lead towards the playground area. Also creating a small office, town clerk storage, having room for a pantry, and then renovating the current kitchen and gym. And then, you know, we noted having a PAC studio in there. I think that was a portion of the central or west wing that we were, excuse me, part of the west wing that we were thinking of keeping there, could function as a PAC studio, having some public bathrooms and some parking. And then for town hall, having town hall function as a meeting house, in which it will continue to be used for meeting purposes, that the first floor would be converted to 3 smaller meeting rooms, that the second floor would become a larger meeting room with the town manager HR offices removed, just to increase the size of that space. That at the Ritter building would become essentially the new town hall with an annex. And so the Ritter building would be the second floor, and basement would be used for school administration and ACE. And then current planning department potentially could act as the bridge, and that there would be a 2-story town hall annex. And in our notes coming up, I think that was approximately 4,000 square feet. Brooks House, we didn't have a real solid plan for Brooks. We were saying demolish or sell. 30 School Street, using that as green space. And for additional parking to support the Ritter building, and then also that generalized parking that we can have in the village district to support different organizations or businesses or town functions in the center of town. And then our considerations were that school programs would need to go back into the schools. We did not separate out extended day or early learning center. And then the considerations that we have are, you know, unknowns, cost related to PAC studio, duplicate control room, which would be them having a control room in town hall, then potentially somewhere else. And then also something that Matt brought up that I recall was, you know, subdividing the land and formally, you know, doing an A&R to subdivide the parcel that TCP sits on and separating it from the school campus. In our view, this was remodeled, but with limited new construction. And then the cost implications were regarding significant renovation to all buildings, hazmat abatement, unknown at the Brooks House, Brooks House renovation, also knowing that we need to do something to the roof at TC Passios, again, remodeling the first floor of Town Hall, engineering support, and sprinklers to Town Hall. And then again, that Ritter expansion of about 4,000 square feet for a new town hall. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing that. Hate to give you guys whiplash here, but I'm gonna start sharing again. Hey, Tony, how are you?
You're on mute, Tony.
I can read mouths, but I heard you say you're doing very good. And it looks like you're somewhere warmer than where we are, so I'm guessing you are out west somewhere. And no, we can't hear you just yet.
All right, there we go. Now you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
How are you, Tony?
I'm good.
Good, good. You look like you're somewhere, I said west of here, because we're pitch black. So
Yeah, we are in a parking garage in a little town just outside of Seattle. I'm waiting for my daughter and my wife and my granddaughter.
well, thanks for joining us, Tony. Always a pleasure. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share the our notes here. Go back to that. All right. So while we were going over the school committee, I was taking a couple of notes. Can everyone see this okay?
Yeah.
All right, now I want to confirm you're not seeing my whole desktop. You're just seeing feedback on concepts, right? Okay. All right, because I got a bunch of windows open here. So the school committee, kind of the keynotes I took there were early learning center, and let me
Community
not
links as well, you can add to
and
that.
community. Need homes, and then early learning center, according to the notes, was approximately 24 children, and based on ratios, I'm going to assume that's around 3 adults. I'm going to make an assumption there. And then we know that Community Link service right now, 3 children, and it's 1 adult. All right, need homes that are not in a school and would like to explore the Brooks House. Propose a metal structure, low cost community gym at TCP property. And then now, Brian, can you walk me through this one a little bit more?
Yeah.
Because I think in the concept, there was already going to be, the gym there. So I think what they're saying is an additional structure.
So they're saying basically we're going to be losing a gym if we're getting rid of, if we're sending back the extended day program to the schools, they're going to have to use the gym to house these kids. So that takes away from the basketball programs and the other youth programs that use the gym space at the primary school and Turkey Hill Gym. So there's literally 2 gyms that are now going to be active with the extended day programs, where the youth programs and even the adult programs that the school runs and the town runs are going to lose gym space. So I don't even know if that's a net.
Well, I think it would be a
loss, but the idea is we're losing gym space. So
yeah,
you think we're actually keeping it, but we're actually losing gym space by keeping the TCP gym.
I have a question. If we have the early learning program at the primary school, I know there's the gym cafeteria thing there. Does that get used during the in the early morning or the extended day period? I think most of the times that I was there with like youth basketball and things, it was after 5, after 6.
For which gym?
The one in the primary school. If they were going to use it for the early learning, probably the extended day, they were going to use that or
so it'd be like their after school program.
Yeah,
it'd be right after school.
Yeah,
and
I know the one
the evening. I don't know what time extended day ends. Maybe around 6.
Yeah. So that's the question. Do a lot of those? Does it currently get used when extended day would be using it? Like I said, I know that. Like I said,
there's basketball practices right now. Like my son has actually had basketball practice right now, and there's a practice before him and after, and they're using all the gyms. They're using Turkey Hill, they're using primary school, and even TCP gets used too.
But weren't they later at night, like 5 or 6, or not at
So they're probably not at 3 or 4, but maybe they start at 5.
Yeah,
I'm not positive on when all the youth programs start, but I know the extended day definitely goes into the evening because parents are picking up their kids after work.
All right. So, Tom, I was trying to write your question there. I was probably rewording it though. So I think what you're asking though is how does extended day overlap with school functions or school hours, and what are the times of use?
Yeah. So the extended day goes from till 5:30 p.m.
Okay.
On the website.
All right. Okay.
Do they currently use TCP? The TCP gym now, is that actually getting used for things?
It is.
Okay.
So my understanding, Brian, is that there's a gym at the primary school, there's a gym at Turkey Hill, and there's a gym at the middle high school.
Yes,
right.
And Turkey and TCP.
And then also TCP. And so the concern is that currently the extended day programs mostly operate out of the classroom space in the west wing of TC Passios. And the concern is that if they lose that space, and they reabsorb them into the gym, larger cafeteria type areas in the schools, that there's going to be a reduction in capacity within the schools. And so what they're looking for is additional gym space. Why does it need to be gym space specifically?
I think it would be more of like if it's a youth basketball program that's looking for practice time. That's one example. I don't know all
Okay.
the scenarios, but that would be
Yeah.
my number
But
one
we're-
right now. It's like, oh, youth basketball is having a bunch of practices now.
Mhm.
And even this adult program too.
But we're not losing the gym at TC Passios in this scenario.
We're not, no. But we're
So this
losing the
is-
primary and Turkey Hill gyms. And they're all being used. That's the thing. Currently, there's
Yeah.
like literally, I don't know how much you follow the town stuff, but the adult program of basketball just lost a bunch of space and a bunch of time recently, just because there's just too many activities going on
Got it.
and they got bumped. And it's frustrating for a lot of those guys. And
Okay.
even the adult volleyball program, they got cut and they're only doing an hour a week. It's definitely gym space is a high priority right now. And right now it's the youth programs that get the space, and the high school programs obviously get the space because that is the priority.
So this is probably an issue even if we were doing nothing.
Exactly.
if not-
Well, and,
okay.
and we're saying let's send the kids back to the school, so they're going to use the gyms because that's the best space for them to use them.
Right, they're
And-
using TCP now, or the after-school program, the extended learning, the
The extended day program is using the TCP classrooms
so-
and the gym space.
So, okay. So it seems as if, and Brian, correct me if I'm wrong on this one. I can stop sharing and just maintain the notes here so we can all see each other while we talk. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I just want to see if I'm going to propose a solution. So if at TC Passios, if instead of demolishing the north wing and the central wing, if let's say we demolish both, but built, what they're asking basically is to build a gym there instead. Is that fair?
I think that's one possible solution. I think they're
Okay.
more of like, hey, here's an idea that could work, but I think they're open to other ideas if it could work. You know what I mean?
All right. And is this a regulation gym?
I think they were just throwing out an idea of like, let's get a building, throw some gym floor in, and people can use it.
All right. If you can, I'm gonna write that as a question.
That would be a very interesting cost analysis to see how much an actual just standalone gym would cost. And I think whether it makes
yeah.
sense or not.
I'm sure it's in the millions.
I wonder if they
But-
do those the tents where they have the basketball and the volleyball and the tennis. I've seen some schools have those in the wintertime. They heat them and all that. I don't know much about it, but I know they exist. That might be a cheaper version, but I think the issue is the town probably needs more gym space, whether or not we do anything. So that would be something to probably add to the things that we were thinking about.
So I'm going to ask another question, Brian. Since Twin City Baptist School closed, they had built a nice, brand new, beautiful gym over there within years of them closing. Do we know, or have we communicated at all about the use of that gym? If that's something that could be rented out or utilized?
I'm not sure.
All right, maybe I'm going to add that to, if that's okay, if it's okay with the committee, I'm going to make a note about, is the gym at, I'm not sure what they're called now. Anyone know?
City United.
Is the gym
Yeah.
at City United, okay, available to the public for rent?
That church is closed?
Twin City Baptist closed. Yeah, the school closed.
Well, the school.
Yeah, the church is still there, but the school closed.
Okay.
I know that that's on the other side of town.
I know they rent out gym space because my son has played there before.
Yep.
Basketball. I can't remember why or when, but he's
I
definitely
think
played
it's-
there.
I think it's more of just so we're aware of it, so we can plan accordingly, because again, we don't want to upset. It's all the things that we do can affect other groups. So if it's affecting the youth programs, we want to make sure the youth programs are happy with whatever we come up with.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and I'm mentioning it because I don't know how they're using it. Certainly it's not our property, you know, but if there's an opportunity for us to engage in a long-term arrangement, you know, with City United to utilize the gym, and if that meets the needs of the school committee and we can do it at a lower cost than building a new building that's being requested, then I think that that's something worth at least having a conversation about.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, and then I know that in the previous meeting, Brian, Mr. Gray had noted that the United Parish is also in the process of selling or potentially selling their building located in the center of town. I know the town is not the best people. It's not a good time for us to buy buildings that need to be rehabilitated. But I'm just curious if there's been any conversation between the school and Mr. Gray on that, or United Parish on that. No. Mr. Gray, do you have a kind of a list of needs for that property as far as what's needed there? Because I mean, most people unload when properties need work. Right?
Yeah, it's well, for us at the United Parish, it's more of, we did a lot of work around, well, 20 years ago, new roof, heating systems and things like that. So it's not in horrible shape. The floors are fine. It's just that we don't really have the need for all that space anymore. So it gets used by the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and Taekwondo and a few others, but not much else. So we're looking to offload it to reduce our expenses. It would probably need work. Obviously, I know it doesn't conform to probably some of the new regs and things as far as you know, it has a kitchen. I know it's not a commercial kitchen and things like that, but it's not you know, it doesn't have parking. You could turn some space to parking, but you know, it's not. I personally don't think it's the right fit for the town, but you know, it could be. But it doesn't have a gym. It has a function area, that, you know, but not really a place for a gym.
Yeah. Okay. And with your last comment there is that you think that it would be a good thing for the town.
I just, well, based on what I know of what we need for the town, it's a good location because it's right near everything. But as far as what we need, it's probably not a good fit.
Okay.
I mean, it would probably be just as easier to keep more at TCP and spend the money on, you know, keeping a bigger TCP than it would be to buy another building and then do whatever we need to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I follow what you're saying. All right. So I won't add that on the to-do list unless someone else thinks that we should. But I have added about the gym at City United, that, you know, if there's a deal to be had there, I think that's certainly worth exploring. All right. I feel like I'm doing a lot of talking here tonight, as I have been. So I want to go back to the board and kind of go around the horn. I know you got to get going soon, Gray. So these concepts, and I call you Gray, Greg. So I know that these concepts have been out here for a little bit. So, and that they've been kind of discussed in the community. So I kind of just want to record what you're hearing for community feedback. Greg, if anything.
I haven't really heard much. We had some dialogue with a few folks outside of the select board meeting right after we gave that presentation, and you know, I think maybe some of those concerns that were raised might have been resolved after you visited the school committee. I mean, I think, so if anything, the comments that I'm hearing are, let's just make sure that we have a home for all the various school programs that are really vital. But I mean, we heard that now from the school committee directly. So I think, that's probably the feedback that that sticks out in my mind.
All right.
But again, it seems like now that we've advanced that discussion directly with the school committee, I think we're on the right track now on that.
Okay.
I think, just candidly, my 2 cents, the idea of renovating the Brooks House for some school programs is an interesting topic for me, is an interesting concept for me. It seems like if there's some of those specialized, you don't have it up there, but the early learning and the community link that, that might be suited for that type of space, depending on what the renovation cost is. But that's an interesting thought. That could be that seems to me to be something worth exploring for sure. So that was good feedback, I feel, from the school committee process. So.
All right. Greg, before you get going, is there anything else you want to just offer for the good of the group? I am making a note of your comment about Brooks House.
Yeah, I don't think so. Maybe just, when are you planning to go to the planning board?
Yeah, so let's see. Those meetings are 2nd and 4th, and so the next one is on the 9th.
Yeah, if you're inclined to go to the 9th, I can join you. I'll be there anyway.
All right.
I'll just
Okay.
I'll just offer that.
Perfect. I'll plan to
I
see
wouldn't
you
be
on the 9th.
surprised if I was at the next 2 or 3 though. So
Good
Or whatever,
project.
but I'll be there
hopefully
for the
coming
9th.
forward.
Yeah.
So
That's it. Thanks.
all right. Thanks so much.
I'll
All right.
linger for a few more minutes and then I'll sign off in about 5 minutes.
Okay. All right. And so again, going around, Tony, you're with us this evening. You're our APDC rep. I know that, whenever you want to chime in here, just let me know, because I am going to ask you. And Mr. Allison.
Yes.
All right. What have you been hearing from the community in terms of the concepts, if anything?
So I really haven't heard much from the community. As I stated before the meeting, I've been rather shut in, and it's not unusual, it's not untypical of my life in general. But we did discuss it at planning board. There were 3 members and the land use director. And the 2 other members didn't have a whole lot of input. The land use director did want to chime in specifically about the option 2 and the hybrid, both including the Ritter building as the new town hall. And as he had expressed before, he does not think that that's a suitable spot. He doesn't think it's big enough. Yeah, but I'll let him tell you that himself when you come, just so you can be prepared for that. But as far as anything else, I really haven't heard.
Okay. All right. Tom, Dave. And you're going to be last, Brian, since you're kind of running the social media campaign here.
I've heard mostly positive things at the town meeting, and just being in the public in general about the hybrid approach. I think the biggest question I have is in the finance area is, obviously we have a limited debt capacity. We don't have any final numbers. If we did the hybrid in some way, some version of that, it wouldn't leave enough money, at least for the next period of time. And I think the school committee kind of recognizes that. If Turkey Hill is a building that is going to need something over the next, let's say, 10 years, we need to understand what that is. You know, so if they're going to need new heating systems, new roof, new whatever, it's going to cost $1 million or $2 or whatever the number is. We need to put that in our plans if that's what will happen, at least short run. And then, you know, after that, then, you know, if we need to build an addition or do whatever, then that's part two. But we need to know that so that we can make sure that we leave enough debt capacity to handle those costs.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Blatt. So question about what you're hearing in the community about the concepts.
So, sorry. So far what I've heard is very, it's positive through the community. Based on, I'll say from the Boys and Girls Club, the board would definitely like them to consider, make sure you guys consider that, and that we consider their needs for more space already. They're having to turn kids away, and they do have an opportunity now with the merger with the Milford group to extend further to a lower ages, and they would be very excited about that. But obviously, there's no room for that for them right now. Other than that, it's just, folks are hearing the things that the school is might want to do something, and they wonder if we should figure that out first. And that's about all I hear.
All right, Mr. Scullin-Brini. So the question is kind of what we're hearing in the community about the concepts that have been floated out there for a bit of time. And if you have any specific feedback from the APDC, that'd be helpful too.
Well, the only feedback that I can share is what I have heard from my fellow APDC members, and we are excited by the prospect of the Brooks House being used by the schools. And, obviously that's a historic structure in the Architectural Preservation District that we'd like to see utilized and not just mothballed. But other than that, I can't really share any other comments, from community members. I haven't got any feedback other than the piece about the Brooks House, and any reutilization of the existing facilities like the Ritter and the Town Hall. Those are all good things from an Architectural Preservation District Commission perspective.
Good. Did the APDC have any feedback about the concept for a meeting house for the Town Hall?
No, we did not talk about that specifically.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Scullin-Brini, and thank you again for calling in. I'm always impressed when people are remote and away, and but certainly you're definitely committed, and I appreciate it, Tony, which
I can tell you one thing, that the traffic in Seattle is horrible.
Brian.
Michael Ray, yeah.
Yes.
I was wondering if I can ask Tony a question through you, Michael Ray.
Of course.
So at the select board meeting, I had taken some notes on this too. So Tony, you had mentioned about the historical aspect of the Ritter building and how an annex to the Ritter building might actually be pretty easy to accomplish. I wonder if you could expand on that, but also you had mentioned concerns about just using the town hall for meeting space and the architectural preservation of just having this meeting space. And if you could expand on that from what you talked about at the meeting.
Well, the Ritter building can stand in any of our historic buildings can stand an annex. I mean, that is done every day in the world of historic preservation. And I think that there's numerous examples, close by as well as, far flung, where you can see that an old historic building ended up with an addition that was complementary of the historic structure that it's either attached to or close by. And, my experiences in historic preservation is that we've seen numerous examples of adding new buildings, against a backdrop of an old historic structure like Ritter. I'm absolutely positively confident that we could do that successfully and meet all the requirements associated with not only the architectural preservation bylaw, but also the village district bylaw. You know, I've spent some time reading the village district bylaw, and it really has a lot of stuff in it. And I think that that stuff would probably have as big of an impact on what the town would do with an annex at Ritter as would the architectural preservation bylaw, maybe even more so. Okay, so going to the town hall, there's no free lunch. If we use town hall for a meeting space or for a studio, which I think you know, we're looking for a place for PAC, the building is going to need renovation work. You know, it's a mishmash inside, much more so than what it is on the outside. I mean, there's a few things on the outside that need to be addressed, like the lousy handicap ramp that currently exists at town hall, but that's easy to fix. It's the inside stuff that's going to create an issue. And whether we fix up town hall for a meeting room or whether we would fix up town hall for town hall offices as they currently exist, it's going to cost money to do that. You know, and one of the big issues that I'm worried about is that not that the building can't stand the changes, but that the codes will drive things that aren't currently required today with the way the building is used. I'm not a specialist in Massachusetts building code. I am very familiar with the Ohio building code and how it relates to code compliance in a historic structure. And in Ohio, we had what was called Article 34, and we were allowed to do things that you wouldn't normally be allowed to do and be code compliant because of Article 34. I don't know whether that same thing holds true in Massachusetts, and that's something that a good architect could know and could help us in terms of how much is it going to cost to make town hall a meeting facility that is code compliant. That's the issue, is that there's no free lunch. It's going to cost us money, you know, to tear out those old offices, to create good meeting space, to create a PAC. You know, I'm not a proponent of PAC, but I sense from the conversations that this committee has had that there is genuine consensus that there needs to be a studio for PAC. And I think that town hall could be that place, but it's going to cost money to be code compliant in town hall.
Thank you for that feedback. And Brian, if you have any follow-ups.
No, I think that was great. I guess my only follow-up was I think a lot of concern was over the annex of Ritter and the APDC, and I think hearing from Tony, that put me at ease that okay, this is actually could happen, and I think Ritter could be a good spot for the town hall then.
Yeah.
The only other comments that I had, I didn't see too much on Facebook, but I think just talking to community members, there was definitely concern over the adult programs. I know recently the adult basketball program had limited time, change of space and change of venue. That was a concern in the public about gym space. And I just echoed what Greg's comment and Tony's comment about the Brooks House. I think using that, whoever it was, I'm excited that the schools can actually utilize that space, because I think that's a good selling point to the town. I appreciated David Blatt's comments. I would love to see an expansion of the Boys and Girls Club, because I think that would also alleviate some of the stress on the extended day programs. So that could even be good too, if there's any way we can help the Boys and Girls Club in that regards. And then in regards to Tom's comment about Turkey Hill, I think we see a lot of those numbers in the capital planning about the projects that the Turkey Hill is going to be needing. The only concern would be the cost. I don't know if the MASC numbers are listed in that capital planning of like if MASC, the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, the school buildings, that they would actually fund any of that. And if that's, again, the concern is if we get funding from the state, then we have to keep that building as a school for a longer period of time. So the concern is maybe the town is going to have to flip that entire bill if we're renovating the building only for a short period of time, or if we're keeping it, then the town has to make that big commitment that they're going to keep that as a school for so many years.
Okay. So, you know, there's a couple questions that are actually.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, can I make a
Yes,
comment for,
Absolutely, Dave.
can I make
Whatever
a
you
comment towards the selectmen, the Board of Selectmen chair at this moment? Can you make sure the capital planning group actually talks to the green group? Because I gotta peek at some of the things that you guys were talking about, the capital planning's talking about. And about at least 3 of them, there's funding under the green that we've been, now that we lost John Londa, nobody's talking to us at all. So just be aware that there's free money there and you guys never take it from us. Okay, that's it.
All right, I appreciate you saying that, Dave. So I am not traditionally the chair of the select board. It's been, for the most part, they have also sat on the capital planning appointment committee, or the capital planning committee and the finance appointment committee. Those are 2 roles that I did not assume when I became chair, and so they remained with our previous chair, the vice chair. So Tom sits on those. I'll send him the email right now. So I'll send this over to Heather, and I want to make sure I'm capturing this correctly. And this is on capital plan.
And anything in the capital plan that has to do with the heating, the ventilation, the windows, and or sealing the envelope, all those things, there's free money available.
Okay.
Take your pick. I mean, we had to beg the town to let us do the public safety building. It's sad.
All right, and what do they need to do for that?
Just tell us what you need. Tell us what give us a list, and then they're going to have to comply with the rules of what it's going to cost to fix it. Showing us the ROI of fixing it and all that stuff. If they fill out I'll hand them the form. If they fill out the form, next chance we have, we'll apply.
Okay.
We need something after streetlights,
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to derail the meeting, but that's a very sour point in my mind that being on that committee for all these years, that's a sour point in my mind that the town never, ever has a project to go.
All right. Okay.
I'm going back on mute. Go ahead.
All right. So email sent. I sent that over to the town manager and also to Tom Alonso, who was the chair of that committee, reminding them that there's free money available and to work with you guys before they finalize. I'm sure you guys heard me typing. So, all right. So let's see. So one of the questions that I have, and this goes to kind of Mr. Scolambrini's question, and Matt, I'm looking at you to see if you have an answer to this because I don't know. Does the town actually have a certificate of occupancy for our buildings? And is the town actually required to comply with the building code? I know in some part we are on the compliance, but I don't know the main part.
We are required to comply, but I'm not sure the time frame, or if it's like everything else, it's only by complaint. And that crappy handicap ramp by the town hall, that's brand new. So I don't know how much better it's gonna get. The handicap accessibility of the town hall lagged for a very long time, I think. I honestly don't know the answer to either one of those questions.
Okay. So I'm going to make a note because I think so. We know that like when we were discussing the Ritter building, so not Ritter, TC Passios, and we're talking about code upgrades, that we knew that there was a code impact to the building going from formerly being used as a school to changing that use. And I think the question that Tony is bringing up is a really good question, which is if we change the use of town hall to a meeting house, is that change of use going to trigger something? And then the other part is, will the work trigger something? And I think the question is, do we even have a certificate of occupancy now? I don't know the answer to that question, and I don't know how much we are I do believe that government should have to comply for the most part with the things that businesses and individuals do, but there are times when governments need to have exceptions to their own rules. And so, for example, continuing to occupy a building, but doing something that's shuffling around space. Sometimes, in my head, I can see a scenario in which I would not be in favor of trying to meet the current code to continue to use town anyway. And let me not get too sidetracked. But the point is, I will have this as a question, Tony, about does the town have a certificate of occupancy for Ritter or for town hall? I know that we changed the use of town hall of Ritter building for being a library to a office building. And Matt, when that occurred, I don't recall there being any more bathrooms, any more real changes to the building that were substantial. Do you?
They put up a handicap parking sign and they put a bituminous sidewalk all the way to the back of Marjorie's office. That landing there has a little handicap sign on it. So I guess they figured that was sufficient.
So that was the only modification. Yeah, I don't recall really much. All right.
And I know that they just did they just redid the study. They did 2 years ago, I think. Surprised there wasn't construction this year, but they recently did a accessibility study on the Ritter.
Okay.
There is a capital construction project, because we looked at that as part of the Ritter package.
Yeah.
That calls for a brand new handicap ramp to be constructed there at the entry off of Lancaster Street.
Yes.
So I know that someone was concerned about that. And that may have been in the Vertex report. And Matt, you mentioned that the handicap ramp was brand new. I'm not talking about the pad that takes you up from the street to the sidewalk. It's that big long thing that runs alongside the building, because that was in the Vertex report that was in bad shape. And that Vertex report was dated, I think, in 2018. That's the piece that I was talking about. I know that they redid the sidewalks and did handicap ramps as part of the sidewalk project, but I'm pretty sure that that piece that's on the north side of the building or the east side of the building, that's the piece that's not in very good condition.
Matt, you want to take this one?
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, I think I said something about that before, is it took them a while to catch up when they did the accessibility, and I don't think it was ever all that great. I don't think anybody was ever impressed or happy or anything to do with a smiley face about the accessibility of town hall.
Yeah, one of the biggest issues for town hall, if you use the second floor for meeting space, it's going to be the stairwells, or the stairwells fire rated. And, going back to the issue of, is there a formal certificate of occupancy, who would review and, decide whether or not that the space can be utilized? That becomes a life safety issue. And, if you have a second floor that's being used, you got to make sure that you got a stairwell that's going to be fire rated so that people can get out of the place and come down the stairwell. I'm not sure that existing stairwell that you take when you first walk in is fire rated, and that'll be the kind of stuff that comes back to make utilizing the building more expensive. Maybe it is, I don't know. I mean, but my gut feeling is that it's not, and that's the kind of stuff that the firemen aren't going to like having a second floor that's not, doesn't have a fire compliant stairwell. Our own firemen won't like that, because that'll put a burden on them.
Yeah, the building's also not sprinklered, Tony. The building is by no means compliant with anything close to the current building code. It's just not. And I think, the question about certificate of occupancy, it's a good one, because, the building inspector who issues those is an employee of the towns. And so there's this inherent kind of conflict when you have to go to your employee to get something, right? And then what the state does is the state hires inspectors. The federal government just builds buildings without, which I think they have their own internal inspections, but they don't even try to comply with local building codes, which I just ran into that issue converting a former federal building. And I can't get a certificate of occupancy, but that's neither here nor there. So, all right, so I do have that as a good question. I think that what I'm also hearing that is a question for the building commissioner as well. You know, I think that some questions certainly could be answered by an architect, an engineer, but I think we can answer some of these questions probably internally. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share the screen again and make sure I've captured what we've been talking about. Let me just get back to this. And all right, here we go. Can everyone see this okay?
Michael Ray, I'm sorry. One other thing that I think is important to follow up on is the change of use, the requirements for the change of use, because that was one of my biggest setbacks about the TC Passios is no longer being used as a school. Change of use does imply that there needs to be some updates.
Can you see the screen okay, Matt, that I'm sharing? Okay. All right. So as we look through this, again, we're just trying to memorialize here the key takeaways. There were a lot of information to get, but I just want to kind of capture key takeaways here. Is there anything that we're missing in terms of key takeaways, and then anything in terms of questions? Any more questions that we need to add to this list? And if you need me to enlarge this, just let me know. All right, if you're good to go, just give me the thumbs up or let me know we're good to go. All right. Matt says he's good. Brian's still reading. Tony's good. All right. Dave's good. Brian's good. All right, so we're good to go. I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing that screen then. All right, so that's really, I think it's really helpful. Again, we're gonna meet with the planning board. Matt, Greg and I will plan to be there on the 9th. So that'd be good. All right. So really, I think what we need to do homework wise or to prepare for our next meeting is let me get to our old business here, because there's one more thing. There's two kind of things that we have to talk through. So one is ARPA. We did not submit a request for ARPA funding. I am expecting the select board to provide another opportunity for the community to submit request prior to making awards. And I'm hoping that opportunity happens in January. So one thing that we need to kind of figure out, we did not submit a capital planning request either. So what monies or funds do we need to keep working? I think that at this point, now that we've kind of zeroed in on a hybrid, I think at the next meeting would be helpful for us to kind of vote on if we're going to move forward with this hybrid and then improve it. It sounds as if we are, but I want to give the rest of the members opportunity to be here to engage in that discussion. So I see the road ahead is that our next meeting we'll review the concepts, that hopefully we will vote to pursue changes to the hybrid concept, and then that we will take the feedback that we've received and then improve that concept. So that way we have it what it is now, and then we'll have different iterations that I think will improve upon that. So that way we can address those different needs that have been identified. So that's going to be kind of the task at the next meeting. The other thing that we need to accomplish is ARPA. We need to kind of think through of what funds, if any, are we going to need to be able to get to annual town meeting in the spring or beyond to keep work kind of rolling or moving. So that's something that we should be prepared to kind of talk about in our next meeting. Again, what do we need to do to kind of bring this all to our next decision point here? Again, there's clearly more work for us to do before we hire anybody. And I know we need to, kind of get these concepts back out there with those changes. And then also, of course, meeting with the planning committee, planning board, and then incorporating their feedback as well. So next month, we do have 2 meetings on the calendar. The first one is January the 2nd, which technically is a holiday. And then the second meeting is going to be Martin Luther King's Day, which is on January the 16th. So we need to look at rescheduling really both of these meetings, because again, even though the 2nd is a Monday, because the 1st is a national holiday and state holiday, it's celebrated on the 2nd this year. So although it falls on a Sunday, it's celebrated on that Monday. So that's a holiday we really should not be meeting. So if we all can just kind of take a look at our calendar here and just kind of let's see how January is looking for us so we can come up with some alternative dates. I will send an email out to float them around to the members who aren't with us to see if they work for them. All right, so looking at January, how do any of those Wednesdays work for you guys?
I have school committee on the 1st and the 3rd Wednesday.
All right. So Wednesday, you have school
second,
committee
third.
1st and 3rd.
I'm sure I'm gonna be doing a 40B on the 2nd and 4th.
All right, so
Wednesday.
Wednesdays are out. Okay, let's let's look at some Thursdays. So obviously we're not going to be meeting on any Fridays, but let's look at some Thursdays. How do Thursdays look? Starting on the 5th, 12th, 26th.
Well, the 5th is the regularly scheduled APDC meeting for me. And we are pretty much going to have that meeting. So I know that won't work for me, Michael Ray.
Okay.
Michael, wait, what if we leapfrogged the Mondays instead of doing it on the 2nd, to do it on the 9th and then to do it on the 23rd?
The planning, that affects Matt on the planning board.
Okay.
Yep.
And thank you for skipping over the 3rd Thursday, Michael.
Yeah, the finance committee is meeting every Thursday in January because of the budgets and all that. So we're meeting pretty much every Thursday from, the 5th through, April.
What time on those Thursdays?
7.
All right.
So we can do
meet at
6 to 7.
All right,
6 to
we meet at
7.
6, so we can have hour-long meetings and power through them if we do a couple. I mean, so.
Well, I'm the same way on the 11th and 25th. I have the meetings at 7 for
Okay.
the planning board. Sorry, for the zoning.
Yeah, and then Tuesdays, I think we know what goes on with me on Tuesdays. It's a little harder for me to, in all fairness, to meet at 6 o'clock on a Tuesday because I'm usually already doing town stuff anyway. So. All right, so looking at the month, let's see, if we were to meet at 6, we could potentially meet on Wednesday, the 4th from 6 till 7. And then we could meet on Wednesday. I do think in January that we might want to consider a couple back-to-backs, especially so that way we can submit an ARPA request or try to get one in. And then also we have the planning board coming and we want to make sure we're incorporating that feedback. Or we're going to meet at the planning board, so we want to incorporate that feedback to improve these concepts. So I would suggest the 4th. How does that look for everyone? The 4th, 6 to 7. So power meeting, 6 to 7. Okay.
I'll have to leave around 6:30, but that's fine.
Okay. And then on the 12th, 6 to 7.
11th, you mean? 11th.
No, I was saying 12th, Thursday, the 12th.
Oh. I'm in the 11th. I'm okay till 7.
Okay, so 11th works for you. Does 11 work? No. I see some no's on the 11th, so the 12th works for everyone, 6 to 7, right? Okay. And I think that's good enough for now. And then we'll keep, we can talk in January about those other dates. So we'll just plan 2 weeks kind of back to back, Wednesday, the 4th, 6 to 7, Thursday, the 12th, 6 to 7. All right, and again, we're going to go over the concepts. We already went over what we're going to be doing. All right. So next on our agenda tonight, discussion. Matt, you have something you want to jump in with? Oh, I didn't even see your kid, Brian. All right. So discussion on community communications and public outreach. We've already kind of done that, discussing any kind of correspondence we've received. And we don't have any at this time findings, but I expect that at the next meeting, if we vote on that hybrid, that will somewhat be a position that we're taking, and we will want to communicate that one out with the advisement that we're incorporating feedback. So that's good. Brian has a social media engagement going. So if you want to just, send any more feelers out there on the hybrid, see what people think, that'd be good. Do we have any agenda requests or action items for future meetings? All right, none. All right, so minutes, I do want to take a few minutes and talk about minutes, maybe a minute to talk about minutes. So last year we had staff support us for minute taking, and unfortunately, many of those minutes were not submitted ultimately to us. And so Heather is rectifying that with the reassignment of those minutes, but we do have several minutes that are outstanding from 2021 up until really this April-ish time period of 2022. And so those are assigned to staff. Heather will be, again, getting those worked on by staff. So those will be submitted. Brian also submitted minutes recently. And so I need to forward those over to the board so that way at our next meeting, we can go ahead and approve. I think it's about 4 sets of minutes. And then is it 4 sets, Brian, or was it 3 that you sent over?
I think it was 4, but I sent them to everybody.
Oh, okay. All right. And so at our next meeting, I'll put on the agenda that we're going to be approving them. And then so any feedback that you have on those minutes, just go ahead and send them off to Brian. And that way he can incorporate them in the meantime, and we'll approve them at our upcoming meeting. All right. That's all that I have. Anything before we get into public comments, anything that the group wants to hit that we missed in this conversation? No. All right.
I think I'm just going to add that I'm almost caught up on the minutes. I think I just got 10:03, and then I'll do this meeting, and we should be up to date.
Okay. Perfect. All right. Any public comments from the public this evening? Any public comments from APDC representative Tony?
No.
All right. Any public comments from the board? All right. I will offer one just a thanks. I know that this has been a really long process, and over the last couple of months, we've largely kind of been on pause, really just getting this feedback. I want to thank you guys, fellow members. I know this is time with your family, time out of state, leading up into the holidays. It's all very much so appreciated, this collaboration. So I just want to thank you guys for your continued work to us, and I look forward to meeting with you guys in January. And so with that, is there a motion to adjourn? Thomas giving me sign language that says. All right, Matt moved and Tom seconded. Any additional discussion? All right, we have to do this roll call. Mr. Allison.
Aye.
Mr. Leighton.
Aye.
Mr. Gray.
Aye.
Mr. Blatt.
Aye.
Mr. Scullenbrini.
Aye.
And an aye for myself. It is 7:16. Have a good evening, you guys. We'll see you
Thank you all.
in the new year.
Good night.
All right. Happy New Year.
Good night.